questions, comments? No, it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? No. Right, thank you. Thank you, Alistair. So
he's been consistent
maybe
since
you should
2008.
do 5, 6 and 7.
I'm like that. I'm like that New Zealand side.
I'm sure Act didn't support the legislation. I think we voted.
According to George Cameron, you just become the chair of disappointments.
11. This is very good news. I'm going to move this. It's only taken years.
Second it.
It's seconded by Councillor Cooper. Any questions or comments? Thank you very much for your work. I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carry. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. They'll be delighted. They will. Long last. And item 12. Good morning.
Morning, Councillor
Mrs. Richardson.
Morning, councillors. Dean sends his apologies. He's just flying in as we speak from another country and will hopefully be here soon, but you have me instead. Anyway, as we discussed a couple of months ago when we brought to you the presentations on CapEx and the customer-centric design for regulatory services, this year, in a bi-monthly way, we'll be coming to you with more detailed performance and business improvement initiatives that we are delivering across Council. Today, Sarah Sinclair's here to talk to you about technical advice, and that partners up with the quality advice presentation we'll bring to you next month, which is more about working with you in your decision-making role, committees and policy decision-making. So there's not much more to say. I'll just let Sarah present and she's happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. So my name's Sarah Sinclair. I'm Council's Chief Engineer. I'm a chartered civil engineer, which will come into discussion later. And I run the Engineering and Technical Services Unit, which is part of the Operations Division, which supports our technical outcomes. So when I talk about technical, I know everyone has their own views, but what I'm really talking about is engineering, science and building, and really in the arena of infrastructure. We intend to build a technical framework of tools and of support for council staff to improve our project outcomes and our development and growth outcomes from that infrastructure perspective, which is important because the growth is something that we're very focused on at the moment, and we need to make sure that that growth works for Auckland infrastructure in the long term. We've developed a 3-year plan with the idea of building a technical framework for Auckland Council. The diagram on that slide is really about the framework that we're building, which covers the elements of minimum standards, best practice tools and guidance, access to support, monitoring and auditing, collaboration and dissemination. And the focus for all of that framework is to link our policy to the delivery. This is all about the detail of making it happen. Make sure that when we make stuff happen, it's consistent and people understand what we're asking for. We don't repeat work at the cost of our projects. We understand risk management and build it into the detail of what we do. And that will make sure that we can develop quality infrastructure in Auckland. Turning that framework into an actual plan of action, we set minimum standards for things like vested assets, but also for decision making and for the capability of our suppliers, so that we don't get the wrong people doing the wrong things for us. We set best practice tools and guidance, like design guides, so that people understand, our staff and other people who want to develop with us, understand how to do things, how to turn those visions into reality. And when we set technical standards, that means that we bring an element of repeatability, which takes a lot of cost out of our work and out of the work of developers. We provide access to support in-house as well as externally, because our staff will need support on some of those specialist areas, and it's better to have support that understands the context of council as well as external support. We undertake monitoring and auditing to make sure that we're getting what we need, and also to make sure that we are providing what's needed, and we're monitoring whether people uptake that advice. And we're collaborating. I've got another slide on collaboration in a bit, but really, infrastructure is infrastructure, and we shouldn't have different standards for many things to the rest of the council family or to other people in the same fields of providing utility infrastructure. Again, because it costs people money. So we're focusing on much more dissemination, changing to engagement rather than just dissemination. Two-way street, let's work with other people, and making sure that our training works to deliver what we want to deliver. Now this slide's very busy. These are the deliverables really. Our 3-year plan covers a whole bunch of deliverables. These are examples of stuff we've done so far. Hopefully, everyone's heard about the gateway process. This is really getting better scrutiny of our decision-making processes for projects, project governance, making the right decisions, making better decisions early on so that we don't encounter challenges on site. I will say, before I start the next slide, engineering's about detail. That doesn't mean it's necessarily glamorous. So we've been working on things like codes of practice to set our standards. These are the outcomes of our codes of practice. They're not, I know they're not interesting, but they're very necessary. We're setting technical standards in our documents. This is a technical specification for pipelinings. Importantly, once we set our quality standards and align them with people like Water Cares, that means the industry knows what they're getting. They know what to do, and they know that we're looking for it, and it makes life so much easier. We're producing design guides, again, a multi-specification, not massively interesting, until you decide that you need one. This will really help the implementation of water-sensitive design through Auckland. We're setting data standards so that we understand our own data better, so that we can compare data across our own assets and with other people. It'll make benchmarking easier, it'll make data storage easier, it'll make data interrogation and interpretation easier. Now, I mentioned earlier that I'm a chartered engineer. That's an internationally recognised qualification. That means that if I go up in court as an expert witness against other expert witnesses, I've got similar or better qualifications to them. It reflects my work experience, but one of the things that we say with the professional qualifications is our staff are highly competent people. We've got a lot of experts in council. We're really fortunate to have a lot of experts in council. And it's important that we get them the qualifications that recognise their competence and ability. So we've been working with professional qualifications bodies such as IPENS, that's the Institute of Professional Engineers New Zealand, to bring in development programs for our engineers so that their capability and qualifications can be accredited to give them those nationally or internationally recognised qualifications. So this is a glamorous photo. This is us accepting the Auckland Council accreditation as a professional development partner of IPENS. with T-Radar. That's my engineering design manager, Branko Veljanovski, on the right. That's going to be launched in council next week for our engineers.
Radar and communications.
And the last one, back to the paperwork, is developing operational guidance on some of our high-risk assets. This is an example of making sure that people don't go and dig holes on our landfills, which might have gas and other dangerous substances, without getting the right accreditations. So moving from dissemination to engagement, as I said, we need to recognise that there are experts everywhere, and that we need to work with industry so that we get their best ideas, and also so that they know what to expect when we set our standards and start changing things. So there's a whole lot of work around communication engagement. There are two photos there on the right. The first is a consultation for sediment and erosion control, where at the start of the guidance that we're developing, we brought the industry experts into a room, voluntarily, we didn't pay them, and said, tell us what we need to do, tell us what your best ideas are. And honestly, they were delighted, absolutely delighted. It's much better for industry to get involved early than to hand them something and then have them say, oh no, we think you should have blah, blah, blah in there. We've got a whole bunch of communities of practice running, not just across council at the moment, but across anywhere in the sector where we've got shared technical interests. That photo at the bottom, which is in this building, is the Auckland Infrastructure and Procurement Group, where someone from Wellington up there is sharing ideas on data standards with the people in the room who represent the construction industry of Auckland. So there's plenty going on, and over time you'll see much more because we are increasing the visibility of our technical basis. So bringing it all together, here's an example of a really recent document that was published. This brings the unitary plan vision for water-sensitive design into a document for developers on essentially land use planning, turning it into the detail, dealing with some of the perceptions about water-sensitive design. It's been trialled through the Housing Project Office. It's had working groups through council and through industry. Again, we've actually got a cross-industry working group voluntarily working on identifying further barriers to water-sensitive design so that we can bring them into our future guidance. My summary slide is that as a business improvement, there is a work plan to address that technical risk of council and improve our asset outcomes, which is already underway. We're focusing on high-level risks and we're focusing on things we need to do to make the council's vision happen in the detailed paperwork. And we're also engaging with industry throughout so that everyone knows what we're trying to achieve, what to expect, and is working with us on the best way of doing it. I don't have a slide that says questions.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Councillor Lee.
Madam Chair, I want to congratulate Chief Engineer Sarah Sinclair for this initiative. I strongly support it. For a number of years now, the technical expertise and the best technical people in Auckland local government have been headhunted by the private sector, and that has meant a migration of technical knowledge and know-how away from the council, away from the regulator, to the consultancy agencies. And I think the initiative here will help to reverse this trend. It will mean that the council, in terms of its administration, is focusing on quality, on expertise, on boosting. This will boost the credibility and respect of the council in the marketplace, and I think that's very, very important. In recent years, and didn't begin with the Super City. The trend's been going on for a number of years now. There hasn't been the respect or the funding for technical experts. Rather, the funding has gone for more and more numbers and focusing on more theoretical things like policy analysts. And I think a return to focusing on technical experts and enhancing that competency within the council can only do good. So I strongly support it and congratulate you.
Thank you.